Hey, Kevin, how would you start investing with a little amount of cash, whatever little amount means?
That's a good question. And I've thought about this. Actually, this question came from one of our listeners who brought this up, and we figured, hey, now is a good time for us to answer this question and provide you guys with an episode. On top of that, if you do have any podcast ideas or if you have any questions you want to ask us, reach out, techguyswhoinvest@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd be open to hearing potential podcast episode ideas. So let us know.
Awesome.
But to
All
answer that
right. So,
question, which I
yeah.
haven't answered, I thought, for me personally, the first thing I would do is to get educated. Because if you are not educated, you will make mistakes as an investor. And then you have to kind of recoup that to get back to where you once were. But getting educated helps get you focused also. When you know exactly what you want to attack and how to attack it, you can just go after it. Because I've been in that position where I think I want to do this, but I don't know where to go. So I go down a rabbit hole here, then something else sounds good. And not having my investor identity makes me more susceptible to the shiny object syndrome. So with a small amount of cash, I think it's important to get educated, to know the risks and understand the strategies of how you can then take that, take whatever money you're going to get, whether it's raising capital or you saving up to become more successful, to build that into this massive pile of cash that you can then turn into streams of income or just become to invest in a wiser and safer fashion.
You are a smart man, my friend.
I have some really smart friends.
You are the five people you surround yourself with, right? So I think that was a brilliant answer for a lot of reasons. And one example to highlight is how you mentioned investor identity and being clear on your investor identity. Well, how did you even know what an investor identity is? A couple years ago, you didn't know what that was, right?
Yep, I
You
did know.
learned that
I did.
through your education.
And
You
asking
learned
people.
that through yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that just makes your point. You take a little bit of money and invest that in an education, whether it's books or videos or a course, or like you and I did the mastermind with Tyler. That is something that will give you an unlimited ROI, and you will grow so much from that that you will learn things like how to invest with no money.
Yeah, you could take $100 and buy a bunch of books that will help set you off on a better path than you putting $100 into something like Robinhood. Or, for example, that's just a nothing against the Robinhood app and that investing, but I'm just saying you could do it in a much more better fashion because then you'd be more educated. You'd know what to do next. And then each of those books has a community associated with it. Rich Dad Poor Dad, I can guarantee there's some community, whether there's a forum on Reddit or Facebook, you can then find people to connect with to then expand your network once you've read that book and you have a better understanding.
Yeah, that's what I did. That definitely is how I got started, is by educating myself. And I started with a free resource, which is the library.
There
I
you go.
I did. I started there, and I got Rich Dad Poor Dad at my local public library and read it. And then I got five more books from my local public library and read them. I
Or
mean,
you
talk
could,
about
yeah.
an infinite ROI.
And you're going to hear those books talked about all the time, and they're warranted. They have a lot of information that will shift your mentality as to think about how you can invest your money. Um, where do you stand with this idea that if you want to invest with no money down, you have to do wholesaling?
I totally don't subscribe to that at all. I think that's one thing you could do, but there are many more. I bought my first rental property with no money down.
And how'd you do that?
Bought my second rental property with no money down. Actually, come to think of it, I bought my third one with no money down as well. But there are many ways to do it, and what we're talking about, these books and courses and different seminars or conferences you can go to will teach you how to do those things. Now, the way I did it, you asked how I did it. The way I did it is a couple of different ways. One way is I borrowed the money and bought it with cash from the borrowed money, and then improved the property, and then did a cash out refi where the bank loaned me money on the improved property, which was now worth more, and then I could pay back the private lender that I borrowed money from and still have some left over. Plus, my tenants are paying the mortgage on the property now. So that's one way to do it.
Infinite return, basically.
Yeah. And anytime you can buy property without your own money, it is. So when I say no money down or none, I'm really talking about none of my own money out of my pocket. It's borrowed money or money I've leveraged in some way. I'm not talking about necessarily zero down payment. So I don't want people to get confused with that. I just mean I didn't use my own money to buy it.
Yeah, so this isn't a car commercial. Zero down, 0%
Right.
APR. We're definitely not advertising that. And talking about not having your own money in while you invest is a very hot topic. Just to think about it and as a thought exercise, it's marketing. If I can tell you and say, hey, this is how I grew my entire nest egg without any of my money down, it's going to get you to listen to what we have to say. And you'll see a lot of that online. And just if you hear something like that, go a bit deeper, understand what they're talking about. Even with us, if you want to reach out and want to learn more, ask us some questions about it. Or if there's something that we talk about, dive into it yourself. I think that's also important. The whole no money down thing is very much possible, but you're going to have to develop that skill of raising capital. And how do you do that? You read a book, you network with people, you find a mentor. All of these things are very possible on your end if you spend the time to invest in yourself. So that's why there's such an importance, an emphasis that Adam and I have on investing in yourself, whether it's through books or mentors or going to an event. If you have a couple $100 that you're like, I could buy a book, I can go to this real estate event. You don't know who you're going to meet there. It could be a mentor, it could be a friend, it could be a partner that is going to help propel you and your investment journey and accelerate it exponentially.
Yeah. And one way to get educated is to go to conferences like the one I went to last weekend in Orlando. I went to Multifamily Mastery, Jake and Gino's event, and I learned a ton of stuff. One of the things that they were talking about, which I had already experienced, but they sort of said it in a way that made me rethink it and process it and understand it even a little bit better, which is the way wealthy people and very successful investors think is in terms of the return on the investment and not in terms of the cost of something. So yes. If it makes you money, it doesn't cost you anything. That's what they were saying. And I love that. That's part of what I did in those transactions you asked me about, and part of what the wealthy mindset is. If you borrow money at what middle class and poor people would call expensive, paying someone 10, 12% for their money, but then that makes you more than that amount. It didn't really cost you anything. It helped you achieve a higher goal, and therefore it's worth it.
Exactly. That's a fantastic segue into talking about, to move off of the zero money down or none of your own money in. That's an ideal, I think. If you can achieve that and learn how to do that, you should run with that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't, if you can afford to put some of your own cash in, that you should almost like, you shouldn't do that either. Like for an FHA loan, there are people out there that house hack, and I don't know the exact terms of the FHA. Last time I looked into it, it was 3.5% down for that loan. So instead of having the traditional 20% for a loan to buy a property, you only had to have 3.5%, and you had to live in the property for a year or so, if I recall correctly. Somebody can fact check me, but imagine you did that for a duplex or even a single family home and you rented the rest of the property out. You, with your money down, if you are able to collect income on that, that's a huge investment for you and net a positive cash flow. Then you can save up that cash flow to then buy another one and repeat the process.
Yeah. And taking action like that is an investment in your education as well.
Yeah,
Just taking
absolutely.
action, getting that experience, not being afraid to move forward. You will learn, you will educate yourself by doing that. And I think that's a phenomenal way to learn.
Action is the single greatest way that you will learn, almost like investing is the single greatest action you can take to get out of the rat race.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's see. What are some other ways to get educated? We talked about taking action. We talked about going to conferences, and we even talked about going to the library.
Networking. I think networking is
That's a good one.
huge. You could 10 lunches, assuming lunch is like $10 or something, with different people that you're learning from, or that could be the same person that you're building a relationship with. You don't even have to necessarily learn that exact asset class. Maybe you learn how to bring value to somebody. Maybe you become an expert marketer and you educate that person, like that could be your mentor, on how to market better. And investors tend to recognize when somebody's adding value to them, and they'll want to bring value back. So it's like, hey, you've helped me a lot. I want to be able to help you. So that's another way that it could happen. By taking that money, investing in yourself to highlight how you can bring value to a bunch of other people.
Hey, Kevin, you know one of my favorite ways to get educated?
How?
Listening to podcasts.
I think I know a fantastic podcast about investing.
Tech guys who invest.
But in all seriousness, the podcasts are a great way to learn, and they're an abundant resource. So you should check out that out as well.
I agree. Are there any of your, like, maybe what's your top, or one or two your favorite podcasts that you listen to learn from?
For investing or just learning about life?
Yeah, I think for investing.
Yeah, so that's a good one. And I'm biased because he's my mentor, but the Cash Flow Guys podcast, Tyler Sheff, is a fantastic podcast. And then from a note investing perspective, the Good Deeds Note Investing by Christopher 70 and Gail Anthony Greenberg. They talk about the day in and day out of how to be a note investor. And I think they have some fantastic nuggets of knowledge to share about the note industry.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I listen to some multifamily podcasts for sure. Love Rod Cleef's podcast, and he was a guest on our show, episode number 5. Listen to several others, but outside of that, I really like Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad podcast. I listen to that most regularly. That's probably my favorite one. And then Peter Schiff, that's probably a close second. I really like listening to Peter Schiff. He's an economist, and definitely more on the gloom and doom side of things. So I have to balance it out with someone who's not. But the guy's brilliant and really fun to listen to.
Okay, so I want to do a thought exercise right now. When did you start investing? A few years ago, right?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
So if you were to get into the room with your younger self and with the knowledge you have now, what would be the advice you would give them about investing in themselves, or how to invest with little money down?
Oh, that's a great one. Do you mean myself in 2016 in that area, or do you mean much younger self? Like,
we'll go with the 2016, like when you first started going down this path.
Gotcha. Well, looking back, my path was pretty good because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I learned by doing, and I did take action relatively quickly. I guess the advice I would give myself that would have accelerated things is don't be afraid to spend more money investing in myself. Those who know me very closely know that I can be a bit tight-fisted.
Frugal. We'll go with frugal.
Frugal. That's a good way to say it. Thank you for being kind. And if I would have been a little more willing to spend quicker on my education, it definitely would have accelerated me. I think having a mentor is super important. That's not cheap either, but spending the money for that it does accelerate you. On the other hand, like I said, my problem back then was I didn't know what I didn't know. I learned by doing, and I didn't feel like I had a guarantee that that money would pay off. So you're talking about spending a sizable sum of money, and I didn't realize at the time it would be
Sure.
worth every penny and more. So it was, in my mind, very scary and risky.
But it worked out.
How about yourself, Kevin? If you talk to your younger self when you first started investing, what would you say to yourself?
The first thing I would say is to get focused and learn, become the expert. Learn whatever it is, whatever asset class, pick something within that asset class. If it's multifamily, for example, value add, how to be the best value add investor. Note investing, how to be the best performing note investor or non-performing note investor. Pick one of those aspects of an asset class and learn every single thing you can about it. Absorb it. And then don't be afraid to take action. The only way that you're going to become successful is by taking action. And it's not going to be perfect the first time. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You just need to swing. And if it doesn't go well, what did you learn? And if it does go well, as long as you're on the base, that's a start to the financial home run, if you will.
Yeah, I think that is some great advice for your younger self. So let's tell folks how they can find out about us, Kevin. We have a LinkedIn page that we'd like to let people know about.
Yeah,
Guys, if you go to LinkedIn and search for Tech Guys Who Invest, we have a page on there, and we would love to be friends with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so give us a follow. And if you like we post all of our episodes as well on LinkedIn. So if you like it and you find value in it and you think that your network will find value in it, please share the post. We'd love to increase the traffic to the Tech Guys Who Invest LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and we're both on LinkedIn as well. If you send us a friend request, please tell us where you heard about us or how you know of us. I get a lot of LinkedIn requests with nothing, and I usually ignore those if I don't know the person. So be sure to just drop a little note in there and say how you know us. You heard us on the show, and that'll help. Also, check us out at tgwipodcast.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We look forward to hearing podcast ideas from you and connecting with you on LinkedIn and on the website.
Have a great week.